I've always enjoyed driving, but until last summer, I'd never participated in any form of real motorsport. My resume behind the wheel consisted of delivering pizzas in college, taking freeway on-ramps too fast, and getting my license suspended when I was 20, while driving my sister's Volkswagen Beetle. Last summer, I tried autocross a couple times to little success. On a good day, I'd finish in the middle of the pack, and on a bad day, I came in literally dead last. Well, technically I beat an electric scooter, but you won't catch me bragging about it. Despite the fact that I wasn't very successful, I was hooked. This summer my goal is to drive as much autocross as I can and hopefully go from dead last to results that I'm not embarrassed to tell you about. Last summer I split my events between my Subaru BRZ and Legacy GT. For reasons unrelated to autocross, I don't have either of these cars anymore. Instead, I'll be competing in this. This is a 2006 Mazda Miata. I didn't buy it for autocross. I bought it because after spending all winter driving a very numb BMW, I wanted a car that was engaging to drive. It's just a coincidence that this is the least creative choice for autocross. This is a limited edition, which is basically just a GT model with some aesthetic goodies. What's important is that it has the 6-speed manual and a limited slip differential. Apparently the 5-speed is better for autocross, but I had a hard time finding a 5-speed with a limited slip, so the 6-speed will have to do. I also managed to find a hardtop for the car, which doesn't have anything to do with autocross, but it was really expensive, so I have to mention it. Last year, both of my cars had garbage tires on them. I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses, but it was a big reason I was so bad. This year, I want to give myself the best chance I can reasonably afford, so I'm upgrading the wheels and tires. In another stroke of total unoriginality, I bought a set of 17x9 NK RPF 1s and wrapped them in a set of 245/45/17 Hankook Ventus RS4s. Look, I'm not trying to win creativity awards here, I'm trying to win trophies. You can see just how much wider they are than the stock Mazda wheels. If I can't get these to grip, I've got problems that money can't fix. With the new wheels on, the car looks like a track weapon. How it performs is yet to be seen. The wheels require a mild roll on the fender to fit, which I found out after the world's rubbiest test drive. The day before the first event, I number up my car and set the tire pressure to a baseline 30 psi. I might have to mess with this a bit after some time on track, but this should be a good starting point. One last torque check on the wheels and I'm ready for... I've got a season pass for a Grassroots Autocross series hosted at Stratotech Park in central Alberta. Get used to this track because it's the only place I'm racing all season. The track is mainly designed for motorcycles and go-karts, but its small size makes it great for autocross too. Don't worry about the specifics of the layout, it changes from event to event. The series is called DMS Time Trials. It's a mixture of autocross and time attack events hosted by a local timing company called DMS Timing. It's not SCCA, it's not affiliated with SCCA. If you write a comment complaining about how we do things differently from SCCA, you will look stupid. In the series championship, there's a total of 9 events, 6 autocross, 2 time attack, and 1 event that mixes the two. Typically, in each event, you get 8 runs with a break in the middle where you work cone duty. The vehicles are divided into 4 classes. The specifics of the classes aren't really important. All you need to know is that my Miata races in the sport class, with all the other low horsepower stuff like 8.6s, Miatas, Civics, and RX-8s. Today's the first autocross event, and since I've only owned the Miata for a couple months, it's my first opportunity to really drive the car in anger. My goal is mostly just to get familiar with the car and have some fun. For each event, I'll show you my entire first run so you can see the layout. You don't need to remember them if you don't want to. The context isn't necessary to enjoy a clip of me spinning out into the grass, which happens a couple times.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2...
This run is sloppy. Partially because it's my first of the season, partially because there's no heat in the tires, and partially because I kind of suck at this. I'm surprised to find myself in P3 afterwards, but it's nice for the ego. I'm Jeff H, by the way. Nice to meet you. My second run, I'm just picking the low-hanging fruit. Specifically, I'm not turning where I don't need to turn, and not braking where I don't need to brake. This turns out to be a good strategy, and I shave 2 full seconds off my time. For some reason, I'm filming my third run with this backwards facing camera angle. It makes me look cool, but it doesn't really give any indication of what I'm doing. Nevertheless, I shave another 1.5 seconds, but get knocked out of the podium spots.
Go.
Yeah, I'm good.
Fire the missiles.
Run 4 is when I really start to feel fast. It's clear when you're cutting entire seconds off your time that you're still getting comfortable, which was the case for my first 3 runs. With this run, I knock off another second and start feeling like I'm up to speed. I'm going into the marshalling break in 3rd place, trying to catch this 8.6 while trying to outrun this Miata. It's only an hour into the first event of the season, but being an omniscient narrator, I can tell you right now, these 5 cars spend the entire summer battling for the top of sport class. And somehow, I'm right in the thick of it. Haters will say it's because I'm driving a cheater-ass Miata, and those haters would be 100% correct. The car is fucking on rails. It's an animal. There's no danger that I'm gonna reach the limitations of that thing anytime soon. Compared to the BRZ I was running last summer on terrible tires, it's an entirely different beast. I'm running really well, but I could shave entire seconds. Run 5 is a step backwards. I get it crossed up in the S's and almost lose it entirely, which is enough to blow the run. I'm chalking it up to cold tires. That sounds like a bullshit excuse, and that's half true, but these RS4s really do take some time to heat up. I put in a time that's 3 seconds slower than my best, but the drivers who are chasing me must be following my lead because they all do the same thing. Run 6 isn't quite the return to form I thought it would be either. I'm only a half second or so slower than my fastest time, but I really don't want to have peaked already. I really feel like I'm overdriving the hell out of the car and relying on the tires to save me from myself. Not really a recipe for success. But I still have 2 runs left to rein it in and stop driving like a moron.
64, that's right. Last run.
Did you hear that? The guy said last run. I'm in 4th place. I want a podium spot. I'm going to forget everything I just said and overdrive the car even more. And it works. I'm able to find another 3/4 of a second. But is it enough? Okay, that went a lot better than I was expecting it to. I came in 3rd place in my class, and I got this sweet little trophy that is genuinely the only thing I've ever won in my life. The car was very, very good. I thought I'd come home with some sort of incremental improvement to make to it before the next event, but it's very clear that the weak link here is me. I need to improve and get a little more familiar with this car before I have to worry about improving this thing in any way. It's an animal. It's more car than I can handle right now, which sounds so stupid to say because it's a Miata, but it's genuinely very good. So I think I'm going to keep it as is. I'm not even going to change the tire pressures and see how it does in event number 2. The second event of the season is the Autocross Challenge Day. It's similar to our weeknight Autocross events, except it's a full day and we run the track 4 times forwards in the morning and 4 times backwards in the afternoon. This is going to be a difficult event for me because 2 layouts means I don't get as many runs to figure out what's going on. This run was sloppy and I had no heat in the tires. That's quickly becoming my go-to excuse. It landed me squarely in 7th place, 7 seconds off the leader. I need to find a lot of time and I only have 3 more runs to find it. On my next 2 runs, I struggle with finding the right lines. On the second run, I shave a second to move up to P4. On the third, I shave only 2/10. This isn't the delta I need, and I'm bumped back down to 5th place. With only 4 runs on this layout, 2/10 is murder. After starting as slow as I did, I need to find a lot more time per run. Run 4 is better, but I'm still struggling to find a good line. I'd hoped 4 runs would be enough to get comfortable with the layout, but it's becoming clear that I need more time. I shaved 2 entire seconds off my best time. Normally this would be worth celebrating, but on the last run it's kind of indicative that I left a bunch of time on the table. For context, the guy who finished in 1st started with a quicker run than that and just spent 3 runs perfecting it. That's what I need to learn how to do. So I just finished up my runs for the morning, and it's looking like it's going to be P5, which is not quite where I want to be. Found that with less runs, I had a harder time learning the track. There's still a couple spots that I really don't think I was doing properly, which is kind of a bummer because now that layout's scrapped, and I'm not going to get the chance to actually figure those out properly. But that's one thing I know for the afternoon is that I really have to focus on learning the track layout quickly because I don't have 8 runs to do it. I only have 4. But other than that, the car's good, tire pressures are good, and I'm optimistic that I can do a little bit better in the afternoon. In the afternoon, the track layout is the same, but we're running it backwards. Despite forgetting the course and being noticeably sloppy in some areas, this run felt fast, and I set a competitive time right out of the gate, which was my goal for the afternoon. It also moves me up into P3. On the next run, I catch myself overdriving in some spots, specifically on the S's. I knocked 6/10 off my time, which I'm happy with, but isn't enough to hold third place. It's clear that there's more pace to be found. I'm able to find some of that pace on the second to last run of the day. By backing off a bit on the spots where I was overdriving, I'm able to find an entire 1.7 seconds. That's a nice personal victory, but it's still not enough to gain a position. If I want to finish the day with a trophy in my hand, I need to find at least 4/10 on the last run. Like the previous run, my last run just feels good. I'm absolutely flying. Unfortunately, I'm only able to find 0.06 of a second, which means no podium for me. On the bright side, finishing with 2 close lap times tell me that I was able to find my limit in the span of 4 runs, which I wasn't able to do in the morning. My overall takeaway from today is that having less attempts at the layout showed me one of my own weaknesses. I need to learn the course faster so I can set a solid lap time earlier. No trophy today, but I did come home with a decent sunburn. I ended up finishing 4th in my class, just about half a second off a podium. I'm relatively happy with that result. After the first week, I've kind of set my expectations at a podium, so I missed him by a bit, but 4th out of 12 in the class is still okay. I can live with that. Once again, the car was perfect, didn't miss a beat, and it's entirely me that needs to improve, so again, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing, heading into the 3rd event. The 3rd event of the season is our first time attack. In time attack events, we ditch the cones entirely and just run a time lap from pit exit to pit entrance. Not quite a full lap. Or at least, that's how it normally goes. Today, it's raining and the track is soaked, so the organizers are putting in a chicane before a particularly scary downhill corner so that we don't take it too fast and wind up on the highway. So in terms of time attack, I'm really not sure how the Miata is going to do. In theory, longer straightaways and less corners means I'm at less of an advantage, but pretty much everyone in my class is driving like a BRZ or a Miata or something like that, so we're all similarly disadvantaged in this scenario. The rain is also another huge unknown. I don't really know how my tires are going to do. I don't really know how the car is going to do. The track's not looking too wet anymore, but it could start raining again any second now. So I think if the track stays wet, the podium spots are just going to be the people with the most courage, who was willing to push it most on the wet track. But if it dries up a little bit, I'll be able to get a better idea of how the Miata and me specifically do in a time attack setting. So just to summarize, it's raining, I've never driven the track without cones, I've never driven on a track in the rain, I've never driven this Miata in the rain, and I'm on tires that take forever to heat up on a warm day. I don't know about you, but I've got a good feeling about this. The cool thing about racing in the rain is that I get a chance to use the hardtop that, again, I paid way too much money for. I realize on literally the first corner of the first run that turning traction control off is a mistake. I also have no concept of where the braking zones are in the wet or the dry, and I don't really know how hard I can push. This is that chicane I was talking about. That's not normally here, but you can see the chain link fence and highway we're trying not to catapult ourselves onto. This run was generally very bad, but also somehow good enough for third place. It seems like everybody else is as thrown off by the weather as I am.
2, 1, go!
On the second run, I turn traction control back on, but leave stability control off. I'm not drifting any corners or spinning out, but I'm still all over the place. Nonetheless, I shaved nearly 2 seconds, which is a testament to how bad my first run was. For my third and fourth runs, I'm checking my ego and turning all assists back on. This makes me faster, but also makes me feel like I'm letting the car do all the hard work. I'd prefer to have the discipline to run in the wet with no assists, but it's clear that that's not happening today. In both runs, I'm able to find a full second, and I'm now down 5 seconds from my first run. I finished my first set of runs still in P3. That's a wet track. I spent so much of my brain power just trying to work out how to drive in the wet that I really didn't learn the braking zones and have just been kind of driving based on feel. In my second set of runs, what I'm going to try and do is focus more on learning the braking zones and refining the line. And if I'm feeling frisky, I might turn my traction control back off and try to force myself to use a little bit of discipline. We'll see how it goes. By the time I get back in my car for my 5th run, the track is noticeably drying out.
When you're ready, 3, 2, 1, go.
There are a few places where I'm pushing too hard and forcing the traction control to kick in, but now that the track isn't as wet, I can feel that the traction control is just slowing me down. The nearly 20-year-old traction control in my NC isn't very sophisticated, it just cuts power. So essentially, if I overdrive enough that it activates, it punishes me. I shave a 10th this run, which isn't good enough to regain the podium spot I lost over the break. For the 6th run, I deemed the track dry enough to turn the assists back off. The run is feeling good until I have to let off on a crucial corner exit to avoid hitting some seagulls. The run ends up being a full second slower. My 7th run is quick. Too bad you'll never see it because my camera falls off almost immediately. Just picture me doing what I did last run, but slightly better and with no seagulls. I knock an entire second off my time to gain back P3. By the time my final run of the night rolls around, I'm feeling very confident with my line and braking point. Despite things getting a little squiffy on the horseshoe, I shave half a second for my best time of the night. All said and done, I improved on my first time by 6 seconds, and I'm happy to be ending my second set of runs in P3. Except I'm not ending in P3. When I get back to the pits, I learned that another competitor who had previously been running in P6 put in a ripper of a lap at the last second to snatch P3 right out from under me. I'm not even mad, that's a power move. 4th place. Once again, not good enough for a trophy, but good enough for a few championship points. But then, I got back from marshalling to find out that another competitor in the other run group also put in a killer lap and bumped that guy off the podium. 5th place. Once again, not good enough for a trophy, but good enough for a few championship points. Speaking of the championship standings, we're 1/3 of the way into the series, so let's check in. After finishing 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I find myself tied for 2nd place in the class, which is pretty good. Event number 4 brings back the cones for the 3rd autocross of the season. Today's layout is set up on the reverse track, which personally I prefer. The name of the layout is Slalom Madness. You'll see why shortly. The track layout's super weird today. It's like, oops, all slaloms. My goal for today is to learn the track quick. Instead of spending 8 runs chasing a solid lap, I'd like to get a solid lap in the first 4 runs, and then spend the next 4 runs refining that to the best time I can get. I don't know if that's a realistic expectation. I might not have the talent to do that, but never hurts to try. Other than that, it's super hot out today, so I don't think I'm gonna have to worry about warming my tires very much, but I'm gonna have to worry about heat soak, so it's probably gonna cancel each other out. Parts of this run felt quick, but I felt like specifically in that last slalom, I'm just jerking the wheel and holding on for dear life. I'll need to tidy that up if I want to put down competitive times. When the dust settles on the first run, I find myself in P5, about 2 seconds off the pack. I realized right before the second run that my AC is on. Even though it's swelteringly hot, the Miata needs every single wheel horsepower it can get, so I have to shut it off. As is fairly common in the early runs, I'm pushing too hard through the S's and lose the back end of it. On the upside, I'm able to get my line a lot tighter through the slaloms. Clearly I was doing something way wrong on my first run because I shave almost 3 entire seconds off my time. This bumps me up to P4 and puts me right in the thick of the pack. Next run, I just focus on keeping it tight through the slaloms and easing off through the S's a bit, and I shave another second and some change off my time, landing me in P3. The top of Sport class is incredibly tight today. Every time I put in a good time, the usual suspects are right there with me. Prior to my last run of the heat, I noticed that the clouds that used to be on the horizon are now very close and very dark. If it rains while I'm marshalling, I'm not going to be putting in these same lap times in the second heat, so I need to drive like this is my last dry lap.
3, 2, 1, go!
Ultimately, I end up overdriving the car and annihilating some cones. Okay, first 4 runs down. I do think I found that solid lap I was looking for. And now if the weather holds, I could spend my next 4 just trying to refine that. On the last one, I went about 10% past the solid lap and it bit me in the ass. So I'm gonna bring it back a little bit, try and drive the next 4 very clean. By the start of my second heat, the rain still hasn't fallen, so I have a dry track to work with. The run is going good, but halfway through I just forget how to drive a car and accidentally shift into 5th instead of 3rd. Instead of shifting back down into 3rd, which is the gear I need, I proceed to shift into 4th. I get things back on track with a pretty slick 4-2 shift in the next braking zone, but I'm fairly certain this ordeal costs me some time. My time is fairly close to my best, but it doesn't improve. I know as soon as I see the time that my competitors are going to eat me alive. And they do. I'm bumped down to 4th. Run 6 just feels good. The car and I are clicking, and I don't make any mistakes. It feels like I've gotten things back on track after 2 less than ideal runs. I'm able to shave 6/10 off the competitive time I put up in run 3. It's good, but not good enough to regain a podium spot. It's close though. I'm less than a 10th off of 3rd and 6/10 off of 2nd. A good run could put me right in there. Run 7th, I'm running on lightning until I get a little too greedy with the line on this mini slalom and hit a cone, burning the run. Really not the run I was looking for while fighting for top spots. I only have 1 run left to catch the leaders, and they all put in personal best while I was out mowing down cones, so I need to find even more time to catch them. 3rd place is going to run me 7/10, and 2nd place is all but unobtainable at 1.5 seconds. I'm sure you can tell by this point that we don't even look at P1. My last run feels like everything I have. I'm keeping it tight through slaloms, carrying as much speed as possible through the fast sections, and my line through the S's feels smooth and clean. It's quick, but it's not quick enough. I find 0.3 of a second and finish once again in P4, 0.4 off of P3. Just as I pull back into the pits, the rain starts to fall. Okay, overall I think that was a pretty successful event. Overall, I accomplished what I set out to accomplish. I found a good time early, and then I was able to incrementally improve on that time rather than only finding a fast time at the very end of the day. There's a couple runs in there I'm not super thrilled to put my name next to, but what are you going to do? When you're chasing time in a very competitive class, you're going to hit some cones. I finished in 4th place, which, with 17 people in the class today, that's really not a bad finish, but it is getting kind of annoying being the 4th fastest guy. There's about 5 quick people in my class that I've really been duking it out with the last couple events, and I would like to be the 1st fastest and not the 4th fastest. But we'll get there. Or we won't, I don't know. But I hope we do. Autocross 4 is another standard Thursday night autocross event, with the notable exception that there's a nasty looking storm bearing down on us. It looks like the storm should pass just to the north of us, but everyone in the pits has one eye on the sky. It's another hot day, another one of those days where it could rain, maybe it won't, I have no clue. I didn't look at the forecast because I'm a chronically unprepared person. One thing I've been noticing since I've started documenting all of my runs is that I've become obsessed with the standings. Since I have to take a picture of the standings after every single run, I always know exactly where I am and who I'm chasing and who's chasing me, and ultimately I think it's a distraction from what really matters, which is driving the car as fast as I can. So what I'm going to do today is I'm not going to look at the standings in between runs, which means I also won't be updating you on the standings in between runs. What I'm going to do is drive my car, worry about driving it fast, and then I'll worry about the standings in between heats and at the very end. Just as we're about to start our runs, the edge of the storm front passes over the track. The rain isn't bad, but the wind is knocking cones and timing equipment over. We're delayed while the organizers and volunteers run around double and triple stacking cones. After some delay, the storm breaks, the rain and the wind die down, and we get the green light to run. Because of the delay, we only get 1 heat of 6 runs instead of our usual 2 heats of 4 runs. It's also a shortened track layout. Nobody's bothered by it though, we're just happy the event didn't get cancelled. This run was a little sloppy, but still felt fast. I'd call it unrefined speed. I need to clean up my shifts, since there was a point where I shifted into 3rd when I shouldn't have, and another point where I didn't shift into 3rd when I needed to. It's a good baseline though, I'll take a first run like that all day. My second run sees some refinement, but still some unnecessary gear changing, brake stomps, and wheel jerking. I could be accomplishing more by doing less. In my notes, I just wrote the word subtract.
That's how you do better.
By run 3, I've got the flow figured out. I know where I'm fast and where I'm slow. I had a bit of a whoopsie in the horseshoe, which probably cost me some time. Since I'm not keeping track of times, I don't really know how much. I keep seeing 57s on the timer. I don't know if that's good, but it's at least consistent. I just hope I'm consistently fast and not consistently slow. Run 4 doesn't feel like much of an improvement. I still felt slow in the same places. I'm starting to get inside my head, worrying that I don't have the skill for a techie course like this one. my second last run, I immediately smoke a cone and get flustered. This causes me to not shift out of third for the entire rest of the lap. Somehow, I still crush my previous times, but I'm too flustered to figure out what I did better. On the last run, I somewhat put everything together. It's about as good as I can ask from a 6th run. If I had my usual 8 runs, I think I could have really dialed in this layout. The time on the timer looks good, based on no real reference point. Second place. That's another trophy to add to my collection, because 2 is a collection. It turns out those 57s I kept seeing were good enough for second place the entire time. There was never really any need to be stressed. Overall, I think I got a little lucky. A couple people who were quicker than me didn't show up today. A couple people with quicker cars than mine got kicked out of the class, but a second place is a second place. The guy in first place is so much faster than me that I don't even try to beat him. So in my mind, this is a win. I don't know if my strategy of not looking at the standings helped or hindered me. I found that it didn't help me forget about the standings. It just meant that instead of obsessing over the standings the whole time, I was obsessing over standings that I couldn't see. I think I'm going to go back to looking at the standings. That way, I'm not driving like a madman thinking I'm 10 seconds off the pace or something crazy. But I'm happy with this. The only one I don't have is first place, and maybe 7 cars will break down and I'll get it next time. We'll see. The 6th event of the series is another time attack, which means we take all those stupid cones and get them out of here! The weather today is beautiful, meaning we don't have to worry about the rain, and we'll run the course with no chicane. This is my first real chance to run the track in the dry with no cones, and I'm excited to be able to really let loose after a couple fairly technical autocross events. Alright, there's really not that much to say about today's event. It's a time attack, so I don't have any cones to worry about. And it's a beautiful day, it's not gonna rain. I'm dressed like an idiot, and the mantra for today is to drive like... I'm dressed like an idiot, and the mantra today is to drive like one. I didn't arrive at the track with a specific goal in mind today. It's mid-season, I'm feeling quite confident with my driving, and I figured I'd find areas of improvement as I drove. I did see this Porsche 718 GT4 in the pits, it's one of my dream cars, and I decided that even though we're in different classes, my goal for today is to beat this car. In case it isn't obvious, this is a pure envy thing. I literally don't even know this guy.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Run 1 feels good, maybe a little cautious in some spots, specifically on the now chicane-free downhill left-hander. I don't know if it comes across on camera, but it's actually kind of a scary corner. By the time I'm able to find my camera, everyone else has put 2 times in, and I'm still sitting in 3rd place. Not a bad first run. My second run feels fast, but I know I'm still being cautious. I could be braking later at the end of the straightaway, but fear is holding me back. I'm also lifting earlier than I need to because I'm reluctant to shift into 4th. The car feels like it's on rails right now, and I can tell it will let me push harder. I shave off a bit over half a second and hold 3rd place. On the next run, I try 4th gear at the end of the straight, and it's clear that it's the right move. I'm able to accelerate all the way to the braking point and eliminate coasting. I'm also focusing on track usage, really trying to get as wide on entry and exit as I can. The result is good. I find over a second. Still not quite enough to steal P2, but we're getting there.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
On the last run of the heat, I abandon caution entirely and brake as late as I feel is possible at the end of the straight. In the first horseshoe, I make the same mistake I always make there and downshift too early, unsettling the rear. I then push too hard through the second horseshoe and find a lot of understeer. Usually the car is locked down through here, so it's clear that I'm overdriving. With another 0.2 improvement, I go into the marshalling brake in P3 by a healthy margin, but P2 is right there. I'm also beating that Porsche by almost a second. The 5th run felt good, but was a bit of a step back time-wise. I think the break between heats dialed my aggression back a bit. I also left traction control on by accident. It only cut in on me once, but that probably cost me some time. Overall, I'm not concerned about the extra time since all of my competitors slowed down a little bit too. On the next run, I did what I should have done weeks ago and eliminated the downshift into 2nd that always fucks me up in the first horseshoe. Even if I time it right, I'm upshifting into 3rd immediately anyways. It feels faster to just leave it in 3rd. This one felt like the lap, and the standings agree with me. I cut a full 1.5 seconds off my previous time to snake my way into P2. I have 2 runs left, and I'm going to do exactly what I just did for those 2 runs. We'll find any additional time by perfecting it. My 7th run is still very fast, but it's 0.4 slower. I missed the shift into 2nd, but I don't know if that explains the time loss. Maybe I'm too cautious through the horseshoe. It's hard to say. It's really hard to tell where you lost 0.4. I'm 6/10 off this guy Calvin, who you may recognize from always being in first place. I'm never 6/10 off Calvin. If I'm going to chalk a win this season, this is my shot.
Well, let's go.
My last run of the night is without a doubt the most skilled minute of driving of my entire life. It feels like the best I can do, even as it's happening. P2. You get a different trophy in the time attack events than you do at the autocross events. I didn't beat Calvin. I got very close, 3/10, but I'm not too broken up about it. I never beat Calvin. I did beat the Porsche though, by about 7/10 of a second. What can we learn from this? Nothing. Just the way I like it. Everything just felt really good today, and I think it's because time attack's a little bit easier than autocross. There's no cones to avoid, but I felt like I was driving very fast, very clean, and me and the car were just clicking. There was a little while there earlier in the season where I was worried I wasn't quite competitive enough to consistently find myself on the podium, but now things are looking better. I think we're 6 events down. I have 3 trophies. That's not bad. And I did it wearing tube socks. Now if you excuse me, I'm gonna go take off these tube socks and throw them in the garbage. With 2/3 of the events out of the way, I'm sitting at 2nd place in the championship standings. 1st place is out of reach, and 3rd place is hot on my heels. It's another hot day, perfect conditions, and we're back to autocross. Today's layout is difficult and technical and has a new feature called the Evil Cone, which is a very inconveniently placed cone that you can go on either side of. I'm pretty sure there's a wasp's nest in here. Alright, so the track is looking pretty technical. A lot of cones. It's like a true autocross, which means the Miata's really going to like it if I can drive it like not a giant moron. So that's the goal for today. It's to keep it clean, don't overdrive the car, don't hit a ton of cones, and the mantra is smooth is fast and fast is smooth. At this point, I'm still feeling it out, and evidently so is everyone else. The time I just put down is a full 7 seconds off the leader, and I'm still in 5th. The spread here is huge. It's going to take a couple runs on this layout before I even put down a time worth caring about. On the second run, I'm still refining things. I missed a couple shifts, but I should have the shift points dialed next run. I dropped 4.5 seconds, which has to be my biggest delta all season, and am now competing. On run 3, I forget the track in one spot, but aside from that, I've got it figured out. This is not a smooth run. The word I'd use to describe these inputs is frantic. It's a full second faster, but there's still a ton of room for improvement. Run 4 goes good until it abruptly stops going good. If I don't do this every once in a while, I'm not driving fast enough. For the 5th run, I smooth things out and I'm happy with my inputs. I'm not driving like a madman anymore. Although it feels better, the time doesn't reflect it, and I'm up half a second from my fastest time. I'm fairly confident I can find some time at the entry to the straight. My opponents take advantage of my lack of progress and bump me back down to P5. On the next run, I tighten up the line through the first set of cones to carry more speed onto the straight. This entire section felt much faster. I shave half a second off my best time, which isn't enough to gain any places, but is enough to keep me from losing the pack. On the next run, I try to do the same thing and lose the ability to shift into second gear. Literal brain malfunction. In such a crucial spot for carrying speed, this run is dead before it even starts. In my disorientation, I don't downshift into second at the end of the straight, and find that third seems to work good. I keep it in third for the entire rest of the run, which feels like the move. Less to think about on a course that has a lot to think about. The time is actually okay for a throwaway, but obviously not an improvement. I'm going into my last run needing to find about a second if I want another podium spot. In an attempt to find some time, I overcook it at the end of the straight and almost spin. I catch it, but it's enough to nuke my time. I finished the run over a second slower than my best time. It would be easy to beat myself up over this, but from 5th place, I had to take some chances. In this case, it just didn't pay off. So, no trophy today, but I'm really not too broken up about it. The track layout was really hard and the competition was fierce. I drove pretty good, but at the end of the day, other guys drove faster than me, and I can live with that. In my class, there's some really talented drivers, and I'm not going to beat them every time. I'm just proud of myself that I'm competing with them because I could be coming in last place. Last season I was coming in last place, so I think we're doing pretty good. And maybe next week the dice will roll differently and I'll come out on top. We'll see. For Stratocross 6, the organizers decided to keep the layout the exact same as Stratocross 5, but to run it backwards. On one hand, I didn't really like this layout, but on the other hand, I prefer running the track backwards, and maybe some knowledge of the forward layout will come in handy when running backwards.
That's still good, I'm
It's
sure.
still good. It's fine. It's made for that.
I'm not planning on crashing anyways.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
Perfect. Good progress.
This was a pretty typical first run. I pushed too hard in some places and not hard enough in others. I smoked a cone that I didn't even need to be near, but even with the penalty, the time was good for P2. On the second run, the evil cone section is fucking with me. I thought I took it too slow last time, so I take it a bit faster this time and end up smoking a cone harder than I ever have. I shave half a second, but that tends to happen when you decide not to go around the cones. I dropped down to P4 mainly because the other drivers aren't hitting cones. On the third run, I managed to post an almost identical time without hitting any cones. It's a good sign that I'm getting a feel for the layout. Still in P4 and over a second off the leader, but I'll find some time on the next run by driving smoother. The next run is one of my smoothest runs ever. I was in a groove and the car was perfect as usual. I shaved 1.3 seconds to land myself right in the thick of the pack that I'd been chasing. The fifth run is where things go sideways, literally. I have trouble finding third gear in this fast right-hander, and in my haste, I slam it into first. At this point, I'm halfway through what is colloquially referred to as a money shift. This is when you accidentally shift into too low of a gear at speed and over-rev the engine. Now, there's a wide range of things that can happen when I let this clutch out. None of them good. Best case scenario, the rev limiter saves the engine, I lock the wheels up and spin.
Woo!
Luckily, I didn't send a piston through the block, but I immediately noticed that the clutch feels different. I check things out in the pits and don't see anything immediately wrong, so I assume that I just cooked the clutch so hard that I altered the bite point. This is technically true, we'll get into it later. For now, everything seems okay enough that I can keep running. I'm still holding third and I'm motivated to keep it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go!
The next run is quick, but not as quick as my personal best. I hit another cone, and the lack of improvement sees me get knocked down to P4. On the second last run, I get things back on track and improve my personal best by 2 thousandths. Ideally, I would have posted this time 2 runs ago. It's looking like I wasted too much time spitting out and hitting cones. In my mind, I have 1 run left to shave 6 hundredths and nab a podium spot. But in reality, I don't have 1 run left.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go!
As soon as I launch, the clutch gives up the ghost and starts slipping. I run the best lap I can under the circumstances, but anytime I need power out of the corner, the clutch can't give it to me. All things considered, only gaining a second is a pretty good result, but obviously I don't gain back my podium spot. So, normally this is the part where I would sit in a McDonald's parking lot and lie about being happy with 4th place, but there's no time for that. We've got bigger fish to fry. As you can see, I'm in my shop and I'm disgusting, because I just dropped the transmission out of my car. Everything was going fine, the car was running good, and then on my 6th run, I money shifted it into 1st gear when I meant to upshift into 3rd gear, and the revs went sky high, the wheels locked up, I spun it, put it in the grass, and immediately the clutch started feeling bad. The bite point was way higher up on the pedal than it usually is, and the engagement wasn't very confident, and I could feel a bit of a shudder, and I just noticed it slipping more and more as I completed my remaining runs and I was driving home on the highway. So I was fairly confident I had completely cooked my clutch. And I was right. It's fucked. This is one side of the clutch. This is more or less what a clutch is supposed to look like, and this is the other side of the clutch. As you can see, there's not a hint of clutch material on there. It's bare metal. All of the clutch material has turned back into its fibrous components and lodged itself in the pressure plate. So this is garbage. This is as cooked as a clutch can get. I don't even know how it was grabbing at all. I don't know how I made it home on this. But I just threw that at my own car. But we don't care because we're going to replace it. The next event is in 10 days, and I initially thought that was going to be a really tight timeline. So I drove home, put the car on jack stands, and immediately started dropping the transmission, and it actually went way quicker than I thought. The event ended at 9 o'clock and it's 1:35 in the morning, so it took me like 4 hours to get the transmission dropped and the clutch out. I've got a clutch coming in, it should be here tomorrow, and then I can spend the weekend putting it back in the car, and then I should have like a week to break in that clutch so that I hopefully don't immediately burn it out at the final event of the year. So in summary, things were looking pretty bad there for a little bit, but it's under control. I think we should be fine. We'll be able to breathe a little bit once the clutch is in the car and it's running and driving again, and we know that it's going to be ready for the next event. Because if it's not ready for the next event, I'm going to have to drive the 240, and that's not going to be fun for anybody. But it's not going to come to that. I really hope. Oh yeah, and I came in 4th place. The new clutch is here, but that's not what's important right now. What's important is that with my $600 purchase, Rock Auto sent me 2 of the same magnet. What is that? Apparently someone at Rock Auto really likes Artie's Lincoln. And it's a cool Lincoln, but I don't need 2 of them. Get your shit together. So this is an Exidi OEM replacement clutch kit. You might be wondering why I didn't go with an upgrade, why I didn't go with some sort of performance clutch, and the main thing is that this is the only clutch that I was confident would arrive in time. The last update was on Thursday, today's Monday, meaning I've already burned 4 days and I only have about 5 days left until the Miata needs to be race ready. So my main concern here was shipping time. Genuinely, that's how I picked. But Exidi's a good brand, I've bought their clutches before, and OEM equivalent should be fine. I am still running stock power. Obviously, the last OEM clutch didn't really hold up to being money shifted. This clutch probably won't really hold up to being money shifted. I think the solution there is to not money shift. This is the new one. As you can see, it's very similar to the old one. They look identical, except the new one's got quite a bit more meat on its bones. That would have sucked. The hardest part of an at-home clutch job doesn't have anything to do with the clutch. Changing the clutch is super easy. It's getting the transmission in and out of your car. And I actually found in the Miata, it's a little bit easier because I was able to use my engine crane and lift the transmission through the shifter hole, which you can't do in a car that has a roof. So it's still a pain in the ass, but that was pretty handy. All that's left to do now is reassembly, but that doesn't seem very interesting, so we'll just cut to a shot of me driving and looking concerned. Okay, that's perfect. Everything seems to work completely as it should. Now what I have to do before the next event, which is in 4 days, is break this clutch in. Ideally, I put at least 500 kilometers on it, maybe more, in 4 days. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get a proper break-in done in that amount of time. Probably not, but ready or not, I'm sending this thing on Saturday. The final event of the season is the Strato Cup. It's a full-day event that features 5 runs of Autocross in the morning and 5 runs of Time Attack in the afternoon. Entries are roughly doubled and competitors come from further away, meaning the classes are bigger and more competitive. So I managed to get about 230 kilometers of break-in mileage on the car, and I don't know if that's enough, but it's going to have to be enough because now I'm going to go beat on that clutch like it owes me money. This event is what it's all been building towards. This is the big season-ending finale event, and there's going to be no easy victories today. There's about twice as many competitors as usual, so the field is much more packed, and all of the fast guys I've been racing all season are here. If I want to be even remotely successful today, I need to be rocking and rolling on that Autocross layout immediately. I can't take 10 runs to figure the course out because I don't have 10 runs. And the Time Attack, I'm confident about, I know the layout, and I just need to do what I know how to do. So, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna drive as hard as I can, and hopefully bring home some hardware, but more realistically, hopefully not embarrass myself. I like the layout. It feels a lot more natural to me than the last couple. The directions I chose in the optional parts feel good, and I'll probably stick with them. I left it in third basically the whole time and took it fairly easy. The time I put down is good for third, now it's time to turn up the wick. The next run I picked up a lot of time in the first section, but kept it smooth. I shaved almost 3 seconds, but despite that, I got bumped down to 5th. What matters is that I'm keeping up with the pack. Before the third run, I talked to Jeremy, a driver I've been battling with all season, and found out that he's going the other way in the optional sections. I figured I'd try it his way. I ran over a second faster, but I'm not certain if it was because of the line or just a normal incremental improvement. I didn't like the feel of the line as much. For run 4, I'm doing an A/B test. I'll run the old line again to see if it's actually slower. The old way through the slalom suddenly seemed unnatural and I got it crossed up.
Woo!
If you're keeping track at home, I've now hit that section of infield 3 times and from both directions. At least this time I didn't ruin my car. Needless to say, I'm not taking that line through the slalom anymore. For my last autocross run, I'm mixing the 2 optional elements. My way through the evil cone and the other way through the slalom. It's a good lap, but not good enough to beat my best time. I'm going into the time attack portion in P5, which is about where I figured I'd land based on the strength of the field. The good news is that the car has been rock solid all day and the clutch hasn't given me any issues. In the time attack portion, I felt good out of the gate. At this point, I know the track well and I don't need to burn any runs getting familiar with the layout. I'm able to pick up right where I left off at the last Strato attack. I'm 6/10ths off my fastest time from that event, which is good enough to bump me up into third. I'm going to try eliminating the last downshift into second and see if that speeds up the final section. The next run, I put up a nearly identical time, which is expected since I'm already chasing a personal best. I tried removing that 3-2 shift, but it didn't feel as fast. My competitors are gaining on me quick. In the next run, I'm going to focus on carrying more speed out of the first horseshoe, a spot where I frequently feel like I'm leaving time on the table. I also try to drive more daring and use more of the track. There are some scary spots where I suspect I could be faster by not being a coward. I managed to shave 2/10ths, but my competition caught up to me and bumped me to 4th. I'm now 4/10ths off the podium. It's a tall order in a pack this strong, but I'm driving better than I have all season, and I'm going for it.
2, 1, go.
My penultimate run felt great. I'm still in P4, but P3 is right there. At this point, I'm running as fast as I'm capable of. If by some miracle I can find a 10th, I can maybe beat Calvin, something I haven't done all season, and I'd set a personal best as well.
Good news.
I need a 10.
Okay. Are you alright?
Hmm?
You alright in there?
Yeah.
Sounds like you're fucking around a bit.
No, I'm good.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
I don't get my 10th, but it doesn't really matter, because by the time the dust settles, I'm actually down 2/10. Leaving with another P4 under my belt would usually feel like a defeat, but today it feels like victory. The rain held off all day and then started as soon as I pulled in here to film this. I came in 4th again. Overall, I'm thrilled with that. I was fast today, but 3 guys were faster. That's just life. The competition was so amazing today. It was so tight, it was so fierce, but we were also, helping each other out, giving each other advice. Easily, that was the most fun event of the season by a mile. I think especially at the end in the time attack, I was driving as fast as I could drive. I really don't think I left anything on the table, and that's all I can really ask for. I'm really starting to get rained on, and I don't really want to be sitting in a parking lot anymore, so that's all I've got for now. And like that, my season is over. I didn't exactly set the racing world on fire, and I don't think any Formula 1 teams are going to send a contract my way. In night events, I finished top 5 every time. I found myself on the podium 3 times, 2 seconds and a third, and had 4 P4 finishes, which just seems cruel. In the season championship, I finished in 3rd place behind Calvin and Jeremy, the 2 guys I spent all season trying to keep up with. All season long, the car never missed a beat, aside from when I broke it with my own incompetence, but that doesn't count. I can't think of a single moment this summer where I suffered because I needed the car to do something it wouldn't do. I thought I'd spend the summer tweaking the car and making incremental improvements to find some extra time on the track, but it didn't need anything. All it needed was a quick driver, and I think over the course of the season, it helped me get there. I don't know what to tell you. Miata is always the answer. This thing rips. Overall, this summer was the most fun I've had behind the wheel of a car, and if you saw my driving record, you'd know that I can't say that lightly. I'll be back next year to keep chasing bronze medals and hopefully get that elusive first win. If you'd like to see that, you should probably subscribe. If you're an expert driver and you have some tips on how I could improve, be sure to keep them to yourself. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.